For a while, the Obama administration adopted a policy which said that any male between 15 and 45 who was in the vicinity of people engaged in terrorism was a legitimate target. And we didn't have to apply the rule that says you can't kill a disproportionate number of innocent people in order to get this terrorist. In fact, the policy should be you can't kill innocent people in order to get this terrorist. The claim of the drone warfare people is that they can hit a specific target without endangering the people around. And if that's true, and when it's true, then the attack on that target seems to me to be justified. The way we've used drones, the way the CIA has used drones, I think the Army may have been more careful. The way the CIA has used drones in a number of different places has, I think, broken through all of the restraints that we should be insisting on for our own use of drones, and that we should be insisting on for anybody else's use of drones, because this is a cheap form of warfare and soon everybody will have drones. So it's very important to establish the constraints on this form of warfare, and the best way for the Americans to establish the constraints is to adopt them ourselves and live by them.
Okay. We could go on, but I will exercise on characteristic self-restraint and open things up. As you can see, Professor Walzer is a rare resource. Yes, ma'am, in the back of the room there. I'll try to get as many people in as we can. Hi,
it's Annie Zonneveld, Muslims for Progressive Values. So my question to the professor is in regards to the drone preemptive killing of Malawaki, the American Yemeni hate preacher. So at what point do we draw the line between here's an individual who has actively engaged in terrorism, who has actively advocated for killing of innocent citizens of the world, regardless of who they are. And there's a lot of debate in the political left in regards to, well, this is unconstitutional. So where's the moral line?
Yeah, I've had trouble understanding the objection. If someone is engaged, now, and I mean, well, you said it, actively engaged in planning or preparing or carrying out terrorist attacks on innocent people or on American soldiers, I just don't see how his nationality is a defense. In all these cases, it would be better to capture this person and bring him to trial. But if doing that puts soldiers at risk and almost certainly civilians at risk, I don't see why. I just don't see that his citizenship matters in a case like this, if he's actively engaged. Now, if he is an advocate of terror, but not engaged in it, I would have a different view. I don't believe the advocacy of terrorism is a good thing, but I would hesitate about a drone strike against someone who was simply an advocate. But someone actually engaged in the killing of innocent people, I just don't see that it matters where his documents come from.
Ahmed Dean Ahmed with the Minaret of Freedom Institute. I have two short comments. First, Professor Walzer, your rebuttal of Richard Haas's observation that applying some of these criteria is subjective was not convincing to me. The mere fact that you have to persuade some other people doesn't necessarily mean you have to be rational. It can mean that you'll be rationalizing. I will resist using the peremptory strike in 1967 as my example, instead use the current war in Yemen. People who hold that the Iranians are much more responsible for the humanitarian crisis than the Saudis is something I think that can be debated. The other comment is regarding the definition of terrorism as involving non-state actors. I think that the important thing about terrorists is that they're engaged in a criminal activity. I think that criminality applies whether they're state actors or non-state actors. And I think that when you're talking about dealing with criminals, that's where the question of American citizenship versus other people may come into play, since the Constitution gives protections of Americans who are accused of criminal activities.
Right. Actually, I agree that the issue of who is most responsible for the civil war or for the proxy war in Yemen is an open question, but that doesn't mean that that it is just subjective. Some people say the Saudis are most responsible. Some people say the Iranians are most responsible, and it's all subjective because you have to give arguments, and presumably there is evidence of the actual activities of both those countries and their proteges in this war, and you cannot avoid the necessity for argument, and the arguments. It's not it's not one man's terrorist is another man's liberty fighter for national liberation. You rightly define terrorists as criminals. That's not a subjective definition. It's a definition that points to the killing of innocent people.
May I just make a quick comment?
I'm going to get other people in here. I apologize. We got so many hands up, I feel. I apologize. Sally.